pain cries out in words. Some pains fall silent, only appearing in the form of strength, endurance, and the familiar sentence, "I'm fine." We go to work. We take care of others. We fulfill our responsibilities. Yet, deep inside, there are moments when we ourselves don't understand why we feel so exhausted, so empty. Maybe you've asked yourself, why am I this sensitive, this easily hurt? Or is it just me who feels like everything is so heavy? You are not alone. Many people around you are carrying these same traits. They've just learned to hide them very well. Or perhaps you simply haven't realized that you are one of them. Jung doesn't see pain as a mistake to be erased, but as a force that has silently shaped our psychology. When pain is not understood, it persists. It turns into the way we love, yet still want to withdraw. The way we keep trying to control everything. The way we grow quiet and laugh things off, even when inside we're breaking into pieces. In this video, we will walk through 13 traits commonly found in those who have suffered deeply, not to label or judge ourselves, but to recognize, to understand, and to gently loosen the mechanisms that once helped us survive, but are now draining us. If you stay with me until trait number 13, there's a good chance you'll realize that what you've been calling personality is, in fact, unhealed pain waiting to be heard. And along this journey, I'll offer you small, concrete steps so you can begin to find your way back to the peace within yourself. Trait 1. The armor of hyperindependence. The first trait often seen in those who have suffered too much is the armor of extreme self-reliance. From the outside, they seem very strong. They handle everything themselves, take care of themselves, rarely ask for help, always saying, "It's okay, I've got it." Others praise that as maturity, as being grown up. But if you look a little closer, you may notice that beneath that strength lies a very old fear. What if I need someone and they're not there for me? Have you ever wondered why it's so hard for you to open your mouth and ask for help? Why, even when you're utterly exhausted, do you still choose silence and keep pushing through? Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." In reality, it's not only the parents whose lives are unlived. The children in that family also grow up inside the gaps the adults leave behind. When the grown-ups cannot or do not want to be truly present, the child learns very quickly a harsh lesson. Relying on others is not safe. I'd better take care of myself. From there, the psyche creates a seemingly perfect solution. Then, I just won't need anyone. Jung calls this the formation of a false self, a fake self constructed to adapt. You can picture it as an auto-strong version of you. Always fine, always able to handle things, always the one others lean on. Not built to live fully, but built to survive in a world that once made you feel unsafe. Over time, this self becomes very convincing. You become the reliable one, the one people turn to when they need help, the problem solver. But after finishing everything, there's a good chance you find yourself drained, empty, feeling as if there is nowhere you can truly lean on. You are like a house built entirely of concrete, with no windows, solid in a storm, but starved of light and air on the inside. Hermione Granger in Harry Potter, who may even have been a part of your childhood, is a clear example. Born into a Muggle family, Hermione always felt she had to try many times harder to be recognized. She's used to doing everything herself, carrying all the responsibility, trying to appear fine, until she learns that friendship and trust don't make her weaker. They make her less lonely. In one way or another, her story resembles that of many people, excellent at enduring, but not very good at leaning on anyone. So what is the way out? The first step to loosening this armor is not to drop everything and become dependent. It's simply learning how to carefully choose where you can lean. Try sharing a small difficulty with someone safe. Try saying, "Today I'm tired," without quickly brushing your feelings aside. You may be surprised to find that this world still has people who are willing to hold you, even just a little. And when you've had to live on your own that early, another ability often forms quietly. You start reading other people's emotions very quickly, as a way to measure danger and avoid falling back into that old feeling. That is precisely the doorway leading to the second trait, excessive empathy. Trait 2, excessive empathy. When you've had to carry everything on your own from a very young age, you don't just put on the armor of self-reliance. You also learn to very quickly observe faces, tones of voice, and the atmosphere around you. And gradually, that becomes the second trait, an empathy so strong that it's almost overwhelming. There are people who, the moment they step into a room, immediately sense that something feels off. They take one quick look at someone's face, hear a single "I'm fine," and know that person is not fine at all. They become the emotional censor of the whole group, the whole family. But over time, something strange happens. They know very clearly what others are feeling, yet they don't know what they themselves are feeling. Carl Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." He used this sentence to talk about a mechanism called projection, projecting the parts of ourselves we haven't yet recognized onto other people. Here, we can expand that idea. Those who are overly sensitive to the emotions of others often carry within them deep feelings of their own that they haven't dared to look at directly. In an unstable family, a child quickly learns how to scan the emotional climate around them, to know when to stay quiet, when to step away, and when something is about to happen. That sensitivity at first is pure survival instinct. It's like constantly checking the emotional weather of others to protect yourself. When you see a storm cloud forming on their face, you know it's time to pull back. The problem is, when you grow up, the environment may have changed, but that mechanism keeps operating just the same. You enter any relationship already in a state of scanning the other person, scanning the room, always on alert for something bad that might happen. You're always the listener, the emotional anchor for everyone. But when it's your turn to be tired, you find yourself confused, not knowing. And what about me? What am I feeling right now? Aristotle, an ancient Greek philosopher, saw empathy as a moral foundation, the capacity to put yourself in someone else's position. Jung adds another layer to this. Healthy empathy has to be a conscious choice, not a reflex forced by fear or painful memories. When you empathize because you genuinely want to, it's a gift. When you empathize because you feel you have to feel safe or worthy, it becomes a burden. So, how do you feel lighter? You don't need to love others less. You only need to learn to quietly ask yourself, before or after each situation, is this feeling really mine? If you feel sad because of someone's story, try to distinguish, am I hurting for them? Or did I just touch my own old wound through their story? Once you can do that, your empathy won't disappear. It will simply become clearer and healthier. You deserve to have space to feel yourself, not just to feel on behalf of everyone else. And precisely because you've been putting others first for so long, when you step into intimate relationships, a very particular kind of fear often shows up. The fear that if someone comes too close, they'll see all the insecurity inside you. That is when the fear of true intimacy begins to speak. Trait 3. Fear of true intimacy. Once you've gotten used to living by feeling other people's emotions more than your own, close relationships stop being just a romantic story. They come with a layer of subtle tension, a very particular kind of worry. It is the fear of truly letting someone come too close. Some people love very deeply, but always hold a part of themselves back. They can stay by your side, talk, share, but there is a locked room inside their heart that no one is allowed to enter. Whenever a relationship starts to become serious, closer, more intimate, a very old uneasiness rises. What if I trust again and get abandoned one more time? Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." He called these intense, disproportionate reactions complexes, clusters of emotional memories that have not yet been healed. They're like sensitive areas in the soul. If someone touches the right spot, your whole body and emotional world instantly react. Even though your mind knows very well, this person is not the one from the past. It's not that the person in front of you is dangerous. The problem is that your nervous system doesn't clearly distinguish between past and present. It remembers the times you were abandoned, betrayed, and met with silence, and then uses those memories to judge the relationship you're in now. That's why, in romantic relationships, some people pull away, go quiet, and disappear right at the point where things are about to become more committed. Others become easily jealous, easily controlling, even though their partner hasn't done anything extreme. It's not because they're bad-tempered, but because underneath all that is a confused fear. One day they will leave me too, just like the others did. The first step to moving through this fear is not to force yourself to trust immediately, but to recognize this is an old fear rising. It is not necessarily the truth of this moment. You don't have to throw your heart wide open. You just need to stay a little longer. Delay the impulse to run away or to control, and give yourself time to observe how this person actually treats you. And because the inside feels so fragile, many people choose a different strategy to conceal this fear. They build for themselves an image of great strength and stability, as if nothing could ever touch them. That is when the always fine mask begins to appear. Trait 4. The persona of strength. When your heart is constantly afraid that someone might see your weakness, many people choose a role that is the complete opposite. Always steady, always fine. On the outside, there is strength, rationality, and endurance. On the inside lies the 4th trait, strong in front of the world, but collapsing when alone. You might recognize this image. In the eyes of others, you are the one who's okay, the reliable one, the problem solver. You know how to stand firm, how to smile, how to say, "It's all right, don't worry." People lean on you, and very few could imagine that. Once the door to your room is closed, you have moments when all you want is to fall apart. Carl Jung wrote, "Persona is a mask that feigns individuality." In Jung's view, the persona is the social mask, the part of us we put out into the world to live, work, and interact. It isn't bad. We all need a certain outer layer, so we don't have to expose our entire inner world everywhere we go. The problem begins when the pain is too great, and this mask is no longer a flexible choice, but hardens into permanent armor. Those who have been deeply wounded often do not allow themselves to be tired. Deep down, they carry a hidden belief. If I fall apart, everything will collapse. So they keep pushing, keep playing the role of the strong one, even though inside they have been cracked for a long time. If you've ever watched Black Panther, the lead actor Chadwick Boseman is an image that truly touches the heart. For many years, he battled cancer, yet he kept working, kept inspiring, kept appearing as a symbol of strength. He never told the public what he was going through. That image is beautiful, but also deeply sad because some battles take place entirely in silence. And by the time the painful truth comes out, all the grief in the world can never fully honor a heart that strong. Nietzsche once praised the strength that rises above adversity, the steadfast will in the face of suffering. Jung doesn't deny the value of that strength, but he adds another layer of depth. Real strength is not found in never breaking, but in daring to admit, "Today I'm not okay. I need someone to hold me for a while." The solution here is not to throw away all your roles and responsibilities, but find a place, a person, a space where you can temporarily put the mask down. Just one safe place where you don't have to act fine, where the words, "I'm tired," are accepted without judgment. Because if you keep bracing yourself forever, there will come a time when not only your mind, but your body begins to speak up. The tension, the insomnia, the overwhelm in noisy places or crowded rooms, they are not random. That is when the body becomes the one speaking on behalf of the soul, opening the door to the next trait, sensory sensitivity. Trait 5, sensory sensitivity. Holding yourself steady for a long time, hiding your exhaustion behind a smile and a calm demeanor, does not mean that nothing inside you is cracking. It just means that, at some point, the part that speaks up is no longer your thoughts, but your heartbeat, your breath, your sense of being overwhelmed by even the smallest stimuli. And that is exactly when the 5th trait, sensory sensitivity, begins to reveal itself. You may recognize yourself in very specific situations. You walk into a crowded supermarket, and your head suddenly feels heavy, your heart beats faster, and all you want is to step outside for some air. You sit in a room where the music is loud, a few conversations overlap, and you feel dizzy, irritated for no clear reason, as if all the sounds in the room are pointing straight at you. Harsh lights, strong smells, crowds, sudden noises. Any of these can send your body into alarm mode before you even understand what is happening. Many people around you might say you're too sensitive, difficult, or making a big deal out of nothing. But in reality, this is not just a matter of personality. It is directly related to how your nervous system has had to adapt to survive. When speaking about the shadow, the dark side of the psyche, Jung wrote, "The more it is repressed, the blacker and denser it is." He believed that whatever is not brought into consciousness does not disappear. It returns in other forms, not only as thoughts or emotions, but sometimes as physical sensations in the body. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. The times you were afraid, tense, unfairly scolded, emotionally suppressed. All of that is recorded by the nervous system like an invisible notebook. So when you step into an environment full of stimulation, your body reacts as if it is returning to situations that were once too much to handle. It cannot clearly distinguish between a safe present and a dangerous past. It only knows, this is too much, I can't take any more. The important thing is this. This sensitivity is not a flaw or a weakness. It is a sign that your nervous system has been working beyond its limits for a long time and now needs to be listened to. Instead of being angry at yourself for being fragile, try seeing your fatigue, headaches, and discomfort with noise as a message. I need to slow down. The solution is not to force yourself to toughen up, but to create a slower rhythm of life with real pauses. Allow yourself to step outside for air when it feels too loud. Turn off some devices, prioritize quiet spaces, and give your body time to truly relax. Your body is not working against you. It is protecting you in the only way it knows how. But for many people, this constant sense of overload leads to a new reflex. The desire to control everything as tightly as possible to avoid that feeling of insecurity. And that is exactly when the need for strong control begins to take over. Trait 6, the need for control. After many times being swept into the feeling that everything is slipping out of my hands, your mind naturally creates a rule for living. You must anticipate, you must prepare, you must hold on tightly. There is no more room for surprise, no space for spontaneity. From there, the 6th trait takes shape, the need to control almost everything that can be controlled. You may recognize yourself in these images. You get upset when plans change suddenly. You always think through the worst-case scenarios, and you have to check and recheck everything before you can feel at ease. Others might say you're too cautious, but deep down, it's really just one fear. If I don't control things, something bad will happen. Jung wrote, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." But when we have been psychologically wounded, the ego often tries to protect us by tightening its grip on control. It believes that if everything is arranged, every outcome anticipated, we will no longer have to endure that old, haunting feeling of helplessness. In that sense, control is just another kind of armor. It creates a temporary sense of safety. Everything is in your hands, every door is securely locked, and every worst-case scenario has a backup plan. But what is the cost? The cost is that you rarely get to rest. Your mind is always running, always planning, always scanning. Your body is constantly in a state of readiness to handle things, rather than truly relax. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, is a very telling example. He was famous for controlling even the tiniest details. The colors, the fonts, the feeling of opening a product box. That level of control produced nearly perfect designs and transformed the tech industry. But at the same time, people around him also recalled how tense, demanding, hard to relax, and difficult to approach he could be. Control gave him power, but it also took away a great deal of softness and ease. For those who have experienced deep insecurity, the need for control is not a character flaw. It is the trace left by the fear of being powerless. So instead of blaming yourself, you can start with a gentler step. Try loosening control in very small things. Don't check your phone one more time before bed. Don't script every possible outcome of a meeting. Let a day pass without having to grip everything so tightly. Your body needs to relearn a new truth. Not controlling everything does not automatically mean something bad will happen. And when you are exhausted from always being on guard, always in control, many people eventually retreat to the only place that still feels safe: silence. Silence not because they no longer care, but because they simply don't have the strength to keep bracing themselves in a noisy world anymore. Trait 7. Silence as refuge. Living in a state of constant tension, always on standby, always preparing for every possible scenario, is like keeping your body in a running stance all the time. It's not hard to understand why, at some point, you just want to shut off all the noise and unplug from every connection. In those moments, silence is no longer distance. It becomes the only refuge you can bear. This is often misunderstood. Others may think you're cold, detached, pulling away from everyone. But the silence here is not contempt or rejection. It's more like turning off all the noise, drawing the curtains, sitting down, and taking a long breath, just so you can finally hear yourself again. Jung once wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos." He saw withdrawal, turning inward, as a necessary phase of psychological rebirth. When everything outside becomes too loud, the soul needs a quiet space to reorganize, to mend, to rediscover an inner sense of order. There are days when you just want to turn off your phone, not take another call, not reply to a single message. You choose to stay home, not meet anyone, not talk too much, not have to act okay. It's not because you don't love people, but because you simply don't have enough battery left to power any more roles. In that silence, you feel a bit more at ease, even if sometimes there's also a trace of sadness and loneliness. Silence, when chosen consciously, can be deeply healing. It's like returning to a private room where you don't have to be strong, don't have to be in control, you just have to be present. But if you stay in that room for too long, silence can shift from medicine into a wall that separates you from the world. So perhaps what we need is not to break the silence, but to keep a door open. Allow yourself periods of retreat, but also allow a few trusted people to knock and step inside. And when you get used to living in that kind of silence, it becomes very easy for the heart to develop another habit, always keeping a safe distance, always closing off a part of itself, even when it deeply longs for love. That is precisely when the overly guarded heart begins to appear. Trait 8. The overly guarded heart. If silence has become the blanket you pull over yourself whenever life feels too loud, then over time, the heart learns a similar form of defense. It closes in advance. It doesn't wait for someone to come close and then retreat. It automatically keeps a safe distance. And so the 8th trait appears, a heart that is always ready with the door locked. The paradox is this: people like this often deeply long to love and be loved. They want to be seen, to be understood, to be held in a safe relationship. But every time love comes near, they instantly switch into inspection mode. Is this person genuine? Do they have hidden motives? Will they one day turn their back on me like the ones before? Love has barely begun to flicker before it is covered by a layer of defensive questions. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." With a guarded heart, the problem does not truly lie in the other person, but in the unacknowledged wounds inside. Memories of being let down, betrayed, abandoned, push you to build invisible walls around yourself. When feelings arise, instead of being welcomed, they are taken into interrogation. Is this person going to hurt me the way the others did? It's not that you lack love. In fact, it's the opposite. You love deeply enough that the pain of being hurt becomes almost unbearable. You've grown used to the pattern where every time you open up, you have to pay a price. So now your heart chooses to close as a way to stay safe. The image of Severus Snape in Harry Potter is a vivid illustration. He loves so deeply that he remains loyal to that love for a lifetime. Yet he rarely allows himself to express his feelings gently. Instead, he carries a cold, distant, unreadable exterior. His wounded past leads his heart to stand in the shadows, even though his longing to be loved never truly fades. The philosopher Kierkegaard praised the leap of faith in love, the courage to throw oneself into an unguaranteed space. Jung does not reject this, but he emphasizes something else. Before we jump, we need to look at the wounds in our own hearts. Otherwise, each new relationship becomes just another stage where old injuries repeat themselves. The solution here is not to force yourself to trust immediately, as if nothing had ever happened. That would be unrealistic. Instead, you can try opening your heart in very small steps. Trust one small thing. Share a fragment of your feelings. Watch how the other person responds. Each new safe experience sends a different message to your nervous system. This time might not be like last time. And once you have been hurt, treated unfairly in love or in life, another capacity often awakens. You become highly sensitive to injustice, not only toward yourself, but also toward those around you. That is where the next trait emerges, a sharpened sense of justice and fairness. Trait 9. Sharp sense of justice. Next, if you have ever been treated unfairly, misunderstood, or had your feelings dismissed, there is often a quiet vow formed inside you. From now on, I will never let that happen again. From that vow, another trait emerges, a powerful sensitivity to justice and fairness. You may notice that you react more strongly than others to things that seem small. Someone being harshly criticized in front of a crowd, a vulnerable person being taken advantage of, a disrespectful comment thrown out carelessly. Others might say you're too sensitive, making a big deal out of nothing. But to you, those scenes feel like they are touching an old scar. Jung wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." Those who have lived through injustice know very clearly what it feels like to be treated wrongly, to be seen as if they have no worth, precisely because they have been there. They develop a very sharp radar for any sign of injustice in the present. When they see someone being treated badly, their feelings are not only indignation for that person, but also the awakening of their own memories. This can turn them into moral warriors in everyday life, willing to stand up for a friend who is being bullied, to speak out against what is wrong, to devote themselves to social causes. Malala Yousafzai is a vivid example. From the experience of having her right to education taken away and being attacked simply because she wanted to go to school, she transformed her pain into a driving force to fight for the right to learn for millions of girls around the world. The philosopher Immanuel Kant spoke often of justice as a universal rational principle, a set of moral laws that everyone must follow. Jung does not deny that foundation, but he adds another layer of depth. In many people, sensitivity to injustice does not come only from reason, but from personal experiences of being hurt. If transformed, this can become a positive force for protection and support. If not, it easily turns into anger, bitterness, and loss of faith. So the first step in softening this trait is to recognize not every injustice requires an explosive reaction. You can channel that energy into constructive action, protecting the vulnerable, speaking up for what is right, without letting yourself be burned out by your own rage. And because you are so sensitive to what is not right, you often carry another special capacity, sensing the sadness and loneliness hidden inside others, even when they say nothing. That is when the ability to see invisible pain begins to emerge. Trait 10. Seeing the invisible pain in others. There is a truth that if you are highly sensitive to right and wrong, fairness and injustice, there often comes with it another ability, seeing very clearly the pain of others, even when they say nothing. That is the 10th trait, the ability to perceive the hidden suffering in other people. You may notice this in yourself. Sometimes just hearing someone's voice drop slightly, hearing them answer with a short, "Yeah, I'm all right," or seeing their gaze drift off for a few seconds is enough for you to know this person is not okay. Others may only notice the smile, but you can feel something heavier, deeper underneath. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Those who have known loneliness, who have suffered in silence without anyone noticing, often carry within them a very sensitive, emotional radar. They understand what it means to laugh things off, to say, "I'm fine," while everything inside is in chaos. So when others do the same, they recognize it immediately. This is a very precious capacity. In a world where everyone is busy talking, someone who can truly see and listen deeply is a rare gift. Sometimes, just a small question like, "Have you really been okay lately?" can become a lifeline for someone standing at the edge of a breakdown. But like any gift, if you don't know how to set boundaries, it easily turns into a burden. When you feel too much, you can fall into the habit of carrying everyone else's pain on your own shoulders. You worry for them, think about them, agonize on their behalf, to the point of exhaustion. You become the emotional keeper of the group, of the family, but there is no space left for yourself. The solution here is not to shut off that sensitivity. It is a beautiful part of who you are. What you need more is to learn how to set limits. You can listen, you can be there, but you cannot live for someone else, heal for them, or carry their entire life on your back. You have the right to care for yourself first, and only then continue to support others. And there is a paradox that often shows up in people who are very good at being there for others. They themselves are deeply afraid of bothering anyone. They see everyone's pain so clearly, but when it comes to their own, they immediately pull back, afraid that just by speaking up, they will become a burden. That is the next trait, very quiet but extremely common. the fear of being a burden to others. Trait 11. Fear of being a burden. When you've gotten used to seeing other people's pain so clearly, it becomes very easy for a reverse belief to form inside you about yourself. I'm the one who shouldn't bother anyone. That is the 11th trait, the fear of becoming a burden. You're afraid that if you are sad, if you are weak, if you need others, they will grow tired of you. So you learn to shrink yourself, handling everything on your own, comforting yourself, getting through things alone. You apologize for the smallest things. Just asking someone for a simple favor can send you into a spiral afterward, blaming yourself. I bothered them too much. Next time, I'll just do it myself. And the sentence, "I'm fine really," becomes the mask you always wear, even when your heart is cracking inside. Jung believed that when a child's emotions are not responded to in a safe way, the ego forms around a hideous belief. I am only acceptable when I don't ask for anything. This is a form of unconscious guilt, not guilt for having done something wrong, but the feeling that just having needs, just having emotions, is already wrong. If, as a child, every time you cried or felt sad, the adults reacted with, "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" or "Stop being so weak," you gradually learn to swallow your feelings back down. As you grow up, that guilt doesn't disappear. It just becomes more subtle. You may be very responsible, very independent, very mature, but deep down, there is someone inside who always feels like they're asking permission just to exist. You try to do everything perfectly to compensate for the feeling of being a burden. You take care of others very well, but when it's your turn to be taken care of, you step back. Existentialism emphasizes that we must take responsibility for our own lives. Jung doesn't disagree with that, but it's as if he gently reminds us, responsibility does not mean self-isolation, and existing in this world, is a right, not a privilege you have to earn by being good enough. So, where can you begin to change? With very small steps. Try saying, "I'm tired today. I need you to listen for a bit." Try asking someone for a simple favor without attaching 10 apologies. Try saying honestly, "I'm not doing so well," instead of always answering, "I'm fine." Each time you dare to do that, you are teaching your nervous system a new truth. I can need other people without becoming a burden. When this fear starts to soften, something very beautiful often emerges. You stop chasing distant things just to prove your worth, and you begin to appreciate the small, very ordinary things in your everyday life. And that is exactly the next trait. Trait 12, appreciating the little things. Sometimes, when the fear of being a burden finally begins to be seen and loosened, something very gentle happens. You start to move through life more slowly, and you begin to notice the small things you used to overlook. That is the 12th trait, the ability to appreciate the little things. After going through loss, illness, breakups, loneliness, many people realize they no longer ask for so much. A quiet morning, a warm cup of tea, a sincere message asking how you are, sunlight streaming through the window, the sound of birds somewhere on the balcony, suddenly become moments that make life feel worth living again. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When people have passed through suffering, they often stop chasing glittering standards on the outside and return to things that are simple but real. They understand that happiness is not always made of big things, but of the ability to be fully present in small, ordinary moments. Think of the movie Forrest Gump. Forrest is not a perfect person. His life is full of upheaval and loss, yet he is deeply moved by very ordinary things. Running, taking care of the people he loves, watching the sunset, picking up seashells on the beach. It is precisely this sense of appreciation that gives his life, despite all the pain, a very unique beauty. If Albert Camus often spoke about the need to find meaning in an absurd world, then Jung gently reminds us that great meaning sometimes lies in the small, honest moments of everyday life. When you write down, "What am I grateful for today?" Even if the answer is simply, "I am still breathing, I can still see the sky," that itself is already an act of healing. Practicing gratitude does not make the pain vanish, but it helps keep your heart from being completely covered by darkness. And very naturally, when you begin to see both the shadows and the small rays of light in your life, a deeper question often arises. So, what does everything I've been through mean? What do I want to do with it next? That is when the longing to find purpose from within your pain begins to awaken. Trait 13. The need for purpose after pain. When someone has walked with their pain long enough, a very clear question often begins to rise inside. Is my life really just about enduring all of this? From there, a deeper need can appear, to find meaning and purpose in what they have been through. This is the 13th trait. These people no longer want to merely survive. They want to know, beyond the wounds, what have all those breakups, losses, and dark periods left them with. They begin to look for ways to transform their pain into something useful for themselves, for their loved ones, or even for strangers whose stories resemble their own. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Acceptance here is not just accepting the beautiful parts, but also the painful memories, the wrong turns, the moments of weakness and collapse. According to Jung, this is an important step in the process of individuation, the journey in which a person gradually becomes truly themselves, using their entire emotional history, wounds included, as raw material to build a mature self with its own direction. At this stage, pain is no longer treated as something to be buried. It is revisited, understood, and then woven into one's work, one's love, one's way of living. Viktor Frankl is a powerful example. From his terrifying experience in concentration camps, he created logotherapy, the therapy of meaning, helping millions of people rediscover purpose after loss. On a smaller scale, it might be someone who has gone through depression choosing to share their story, to listen, and to walk alongside those who are now on the same stretch of road they once traveled. If Albert Camus spoke of facing the absurd with a spirit of revolt, then Jung quietly whispers to us that we can turn pain into a path, each in our own way, but all moving toward a life that is truer, deeper, and more meaningful. And sometimes, the way to begin is simply to dare to tell your own story, without sugarcoating, without dramatizing, so that your pain is no longer a prison, but a bridge connecting you with other souls who are lost in ways very similar to you. From here, we can look back at all 13 traits in a different light, not as system errors, but as traces of a soul that has done everything it could to not collapse. And that is also the moment when the story comes to its most important part, how we choose to live on with everything that has already happened. Carl Jung once said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." If you look back at the 13 traits we've just walked through together, you'll see that all of them are like those roots. None of them appeared out of nowhere. Each one is a way your soul came up with to survive in circumstances that were once beyond what you could bear. That means you are not broken and you are not weak. You are someone who has had to go through more than most. And these mechanisms, even though they have become heavy now, were once the best options you had. Healing in Jung's spirit is not about erasing your history or pretending nothing ever happened. It is the process of gently shining a light on yourself and realizing, I became this independent because there was no one there for me. I try to control everything because I once felt completely powerless. I cherish small things because I know what loss feels like. From blaming yourself, you begin to understand yourself. From fighting yourself, you begin to cooperate with yourself. Jung reminds us, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. The past is still there, but from today on, you can choose a new way to move forward. Softer toward yourself, more honest with your emotions, braver in asking for help, and more open to building safe connections with others. If you feel ready, you can share a part of your journey in the comments. Who knows, your story might become a small light for someone who is lost right now. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the content that can walk with you on the path of healing and returning to your true self. You deserve to be heard, to be supported, and to live a more meaningful life built from everything you have already been through.